The airport was alive with noise. Announcements echoed. Luggage wheels rattled across the polished floor. Travelers hurried, dragging bags, checking phones, rushing to gates. Among the crowd, 2 kids walked slowly. James, a tall 14-year-old boy, with calm eyes, carried a black backpack. Beside him was his little sister Mia, only 12, holding a small pink suitcase. Both wore clean but simple clothes, jeans and hoodies. Their steps were confident, but people stared. Some glanced quickly, others whispered. 2 black kids, walking into the first-class lounge, holding shiny tickets in their hands. The lounge. It was quiet compared to the busy terminal. Soft music played. Leather chairs lined the walls. People sipped coffee, reading newspapers, or tapping on laptops. But when the kids stepped inside, all eyes turned. James held the tickets carefully. Their father had told them to wait here for him. He was running late as always, but had promised to meet them before the flight. It was supposed to be simple. Wait, relax, and board first class together. But it wasn't simple. A tall flight attendant in a crisp navy uniform stood near the entrance. She spotted them instantly. Her lips tightened, her eyes narrowed. Without a smile, she began walking toward them, her heels clicking loudly on the tile floor. James noticed her coming. He straightened his back and whispered to Mia, "Stay close." To me, "Don't say anything yet." The attendant stopped right in front of him. Her voice was cold. "Excuse me? This section is not for you." The words hung in the air like a blade. Mia froze. James blinked. He held up the tickets. "Are our seats first class? Our dad bought them?" he said quietly. The woman didn't even glance at the tickets at first. Instead, she looked them up and down, as if their clothes told her everything she needed to know. Finally, she snatched the tickets from James' hand and scanned them quickly. Her eyebrow arched. A slow, sarcastic smile spread across her face. "Oh, first class, huh?" she said, her tone dripping with disbelief. "These must be fake. Kids like you don't just show up here." The room went silent. Every passenger stopped what they were doing and turned to watch. Some had phones in hand, pretending not to record. Others whispered under their breath, their eyes full of curiosity or judgment. Mia gripped her brother's arm tightly. Her small voice trembled. "James, why is she saying that?" James didn't answer. His jaw tightened, but he stayed calm. He had seen people like this before. People who didn't ask questions. People who just assumed. The attendant turned, motioning to a man in a business suit sitting nearby. "Can you believe this? First class, really?" The man chuckled. He didn't even try to lower his voice. "Kids like that don't belong here. Send them back to economy before they take someone's seat." The words burned in Mia's ears. Her eyes welled up, but she bit her lip, trying not to cry. James placed a hand on her shoulder. He whispered softly, "It's okay. Dad will be here soon. Don't cry." But the attendant wasn't done. She waved toward 2 uniformed security guards at the corner of the lounge. "Escort them out. They don't belong in here." The guards walked over, their faces blank, as if they had done this 1,000 times before. One guard held out a hand. "Come on, kids. Let's go. You can wait by the regular gate." James swallowed hard. He knew they hadn't done anything wrong. He also knew arguing might only make it worse. Still, he tried. "Our dad is coming. He told us to wait here. He's on his way right now." The guard let out a short laugh. "Sure he is. Your dad's probably flying economy, huh? Let's move." The words stung, but James didn't speak again. He grabbed Mia's suitcase and gently guided her out of the lounge. Dozens of eyes followed them as they walked away. Some people were smiling. Others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Not one person stood up for them. Outside the lounge, the noise of the terminal swallowed them. James set the suitcase down and took a deep breath. Mia's voice was shaky. "Why are they treating us like this? We didn't do anything." James crouched so he could look her in the eye. "Because some people think they can decide who belongs and who doesn't," he said softly. "But we're not staying quiet. We're not leaving." He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He scrolled quickly and tapped on one named Dad. The phone rang once, twice. Then a deep, calm voice answered. "James, what's wrong?" James' voice was low but steady. "They kicked us out of the lounge, said our tickets are fake. They called security. Mia's scared." For a moment, there was silence on the other end. Then their father's voice came again, colder this time. "Stay where you are. Do not move. Do not leave the gate." His tone was sharp, not angry at them, mangry at what was happening. "Dad, what are you going to do?" James asked. The line went dead. James slid the phone back into his pocket. He didn't know what his father was planning, but his gut told him something big was about to happen, something no one in this airport would forget. Mia wiped her eyes. "Is he coming?" she whispered. James nodded slowly. "Yes, and when he gets here, they're not going to treat us like this ever again." The camera of a nearby passenger's phone pointed at them, recording every word. Whispers grew louder around them. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of heavy footsteps began to echo, a sound that made every head turn. The storm was coming. The airport terminal felt colder now. James stood with Mia near Gate 14, gripping her small suitcase. Travelers walked by, glancing at them, whispering. Some people recognized them as the kids from the lounge. Phones were still pointed at them, recording silently. Mia held onto James' arm. Her face was pale. "James, are we still going to fly, or will they stop us?" James didn't answer right away. He watched the two security guards who had followed them out. They weren't far, leaning against a wall, watching like hawks. They didn't even try to hide it. Finally, James looked at his sister. "Not going anywhere until Dad comes. He told us to wait." "That means something big is coming." Mia's lips trembled. "But what if they don't let him inside? They look so angry." James squeezed her hand gently. "Trust me, they won't stop him." He didn't say it to calm her. Said it because he believed it. He knew their father. And he knew when his father's voice turned cold like that, things always changed fast. The whispers around them grew louder. A businessman in a gray suit muttered to his wife, not bothering to lower his voice. "Probably trying to scam their way into first class. Good thing someone stopped them." Another woman shook her head. "Still, they're just kids." "Did anyone even check the tickets?" "They said the tickets were fake," the man replied, sipping his coffee. "Why would kids like that have first-class seats anyway?" Mia heard every word. She pressed her face against James' sleeve, trying not to cry. James clenched his jaw. He wanted to say something, shout, tell them their father was coming, but he stayed silent. He had a feeling it would be better if everyone doubted. Then for now, suddenly the same flight attendant from the lounge appeared. She walked straight toward them, heels clicking on the tile. Her face carried the same smirk as before. "Well, you're still here," she said. "I thought security told you to wait at the economy gate." "Why are you standing here blocking first class?" "Boarding." James kept his voice steady. "We're not blocking anyone. Our dad told us to wait here." She folded her arms, glancing at the guards. "Your dad? The mysterious man who can afford first-class tickets for kids dressed like this?" She gestured at their jeans and hoodies. "Hey." Then she laughed softly. "You're wasting everyone's time. This flight is about to board, and you two are not getting on it." Mia's hand tightened on James. James exhaled slowly. He didn't want to shout. He didn't want to cry. He just said quietly, "Our dad owns these tickets. You'll see." Attendant leaned closer, lowering her voice so only they could hear. "Listen, I don't care who your dad is. This isn't a place for kids like you to play rich. Leave before you embarrass yourselves even more." James' eyes locked on hers. He didn't speak. But the cold look in his eyes made her step back for just a second before she composed herself again. 5 more minutes passed. Passengers lined up, boarding passes ready. The flight attendant walked back toward the counter, whispering something to the pilot who had just arrived. Both of them glanced toward James and Mia and laughed quietly. Mia looked up at her brother, her voice shaking. "James, are you sure Dad is coming? What if he's too far? What if the plane leaves?" James checked the time on his phone. Father's last words echoed in his head. "Stay where you are. Do not move. Do not leave the gate." He crouched down, meeting Mia's tear-filled eyes. "Mia, you trust Dad, right?" She nodded slowly, Then don't worry. When he gets here, nobody will laugh at us ever again. Then it happened. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the terminal. Oh, it wasn't just one person there. There were several. The noise grew louder, closer, until everyone stopped talking and turned toward the sound. From the far end of the terminal, a group of tall men in black suits appeared. They walked in a tight formation, moving fast, their presence commanding instant attention. They weren't airport security. They weren't police. They were something else. Behind them, a tall man in a gray tailored suit walked calmly. His stride was slow, but powerful. Every step echoed against the tile like a drum beat. His face was stern, unreadable. He didn't glance at anyone as he passed. But people moved aside instantly, almost instinctively, making a clear path. James and Mia's heads snapped toward the sound at the same time. Their eyes widened. They knew that walk, Dad. Mia whispered under her breath. The man's eyes locked on his children. The bodyguard spread slightly, allowing him to pass. He walked straight up to James and Mia, his expression softening just slightly when he saw them. Mia, James, are you okay? His voice was deep, steady. Mia ran into his arms. James stood tall, but finally exhaled, relief washing over him. Okay now, James said quietly, but they wouldn't let us in the lounge. They said our tickets were fake. The man's expression hardened instantly. His eyes turned toward the two security guards, then the flight attendant, then the pilot. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't shout. He simply said, "Is that so?" The flight attendant's confident smirk vanished the moment her eyes met his. Her face went pale. She stepped back quickly, stammering, "Sir, I didn't know they were your... The man didn't let her finish. His cold gaze cut through her like ice. Children. My children on my airline. Whispers erupted around the gate. Passengers pulled out phones. Some gasped, realizing who the man was. Others whispered his name. The CEO of the airline had just arrived. The flight attendant's knees trembled. The pilot's confident stance disappeared. Even the security guards stepped back, unsure what to do. The man turned to James and Mia again. "Did anyone apologize to you?" James shook his head slowly. Mia clung to his arm, still scared. The CEO turned back to the staff. His voice was calm, but every word carried weight. "Boarding is over. This flight will not depart as scheduled." Everyone froze. The pilot blinked in confusion. "What do you mean, sir?" "We're ready too." The CEO raised a hand sharply, silencing him. Then he took out his phone, pressed a button, and spoke to quiet words. "Cancel it." Within seconds, the airport loudspeaker crackled. A voice echoed through the terminal. "Attention passengers. Flight 408 to New York has been canceled. Please return to the gate for rebooking." Chaos erupted instantly. Passengers shouted, some angry, others shocked. The flight attendant looked like she might faint, but the CEO didn't even glance at the crowd. His focus stayed on his children. "Come," he said softly. "We're leaving." "I won't let you sit on that flight after what they did," Mia whispered. "Dad, are they in trouble?" "They will never treat anyone like this again. Not on my airline." The group began walking toward the private terminal. Passengers recorded whispering, "That's the CEO. Those are his kids." The flight attendant's voice trembled. As she tried to speak, "Sir, please, I didn't." The CEO turned once, his eyes cold. "You're done. Leave your badge at the counter." Then he walked away without another word. James glanced back once. The same people who had laughed at them earlier now stood frozen, phones in hand, watching in silence. And somewhere outside, the faint hum of engines waited. A private jet, fueled and ready, standing by for the CEO and his children. The airport was still in chaos. Passengers grumbled and shouted as they returned to the counter for rebooking. Phones stayed up, recording everything, catching every word. But the CEO didn't care. His only focus was James and Mia, walking quietly by his side. The black-suited bodyguards formed a shield around them as they moved through the terminal. People stepped aside without being told. Some whispered, some pointed, and many simply stared in awe. It was like watching a storm pass through the building. Powerful, it's unstoppable, leaving everyone frozen in its path. Mia clung to her father's hand. Her small voice broke the silence. "Dad, are we in trouble because of this?" Her father's steps didn't slow. "No, sweetheart," he said calmly. "You did nothing wrong. Others did, and then they will answer for it." James walked silently on the other side, his jaw tight. He glanced back once, toward the gate they had been thrown out of. The flight attendant stood there still, pale and shaking, her hands clutching her badge. The pilot was speaking quietly to someone, his face tense. Even the two security guards looked uneasy now, avoiding everyone's eyes. They turned a corner and headed toward a quieter section of the airport. The noise of the angry crowd faded. Here, the air felt different, cleaner, calmer, almost like another world entirely. A black car was waiting just outside the glass doors, its engine running. One of the bodyguards opened the rear door, bowing his head slightly. The CEO guided Mia inside first, then James. He stepped in last. The door shut with a soft thud, cutting off the chaos of the main terminal. Inside, it was silent, the air cool. And still, Mia leaned against her father. "Dad, why didn't you tell them who you are earlier? If they knew, they wouldn't have treated us like that." Her father's eyes stayed fixed on the road ahead as the car began moving, because I wanted to see how they truly treat people when they think no one is watching, and they think no one can fight back. His voice was calm, but his jaw tightened slightly. They showed me everything I needed to know. James looked out the tinted window, watching the airport disappear behind them. "Are they going to lose their jobs?" he asked quietly. The CEO's gaze didn't shift. "They won't work another day on my airline. No, they will never humiliate another person like they tried to humiliate you." The car drove for several minutes, away from the crowded terminals and toward the private hangars. The scenery changed. Fewer people, more open space, the faint hum of engines from private jets waiting on the tarmac. As the car pulled up to a sleek silver jet, Mia's eyes widened. It was larger than she expected, polished so clean. It reflected the sunset. A small crew waited at the base of the stairs, standing straight, their uniforms immaculate. The car stopped. A bodyguard opened the door and the CEO stepped out first, adjusting his suit. James and Mia followed, their eyes fixed on the jet. "Come," their father said softly, placing a reassuring hand on Mia's shoulder. "We're leaving this mess." Behind, they climbed the steps slowly, the wind from the jet's engines brushing against their faces. Once aboard, they entered a cabin lined with cream leather seats, soft lighting, and wide windows showing the runway outside. Mia sank into a seat, still shaken. James sat across from her, his expression calm but serious. The CEO spoke briefly with the pilot, then returned to his children. The jet doors closed behind him, sealing them off from the world outside. Mia looked down at her hands. Her voice was soft. "Dad, why do people treat us like we don't belong? Even when we have tickets, even when we're not doing anything wrong?" Her father sat beside her, his large hand resting gently on her shoulder. "Because some people think money or power belongs to only a few," he said quietly. "They look at you and they don't see who you are. They see what they think you are, and they act on that." Mia sniffled, leaning into him. "Is it always going to be like this?" His eyes softened slightly. "No, not for you, and after today, not for anyone who flies with my airline again. I'll make sure of that." James leaned forward. "So what happens now?" His father looked at both of them. "Now, we take off. And I make some phone calls. By the time we land, the people who humiliated you will be unemployed, and the entire staff will be retrained. Things will change, not just for you, for everyone." The engines roared to life as the jet taxied down the runway. The runway lights stretched like glowing rivers on either side. The city beyond the airport shimmered faintly in the distance. Mia looked out the window, watching the ground slip away as the jet lifted into the sky. For a moment, the tension of the day melted. Up here, Above the clouds, the world felt far away. James glanced at his father. "Did you cancel that flight just because of us?" His father shook his head slowly. "I canceled it because I won't let anyone profit from a flight where my children were treated like criminals. That plane will sit empty until the right people are held accountable. My company exists to serve people, not humiliate them," Mia whispered. "So, those people, the ones who laughed at us, what happens to them?" Her father looked out the window for a long moment before answering. "They'll remember today. They'll remember that not everyone they look down on is powerless. And they'll think twice before judging someone by their face, their clothes, or their age again." The jet pierced through the clouds, the golden light of sunset filling the cabin. For the first time all day, Mia smiled faintly, resting her head on her father's arm. James finally relaxed, leaning back in his seat. "Thanks for coming, Dad," he said softly. His father looked at him, a rare smile tugging at the corner of his lips. "I'll always come, and I'll always make sure no one forgets who you are, not because of me, but because you deserve respect, no matter where you sit or what you wear." The jet continued its steady climb, leaving the chaos of the airport far behind. And for the first time that day, James and Mia felt safe. But deep inside, both of them knew the world would hear about what happened. And the people who had laughed, mocked, and pushed them aside were about to face consequences they never expected. The private jet soared smoothly through the clouds, the soft hum of engines filling the quiet cabin. Mia had finally closed her eyes, her head resting on her father's arm, its exhaustion settling in after the long, stressful day. James sat across from them, staring out the window, but his mind was elsewhere. He kept replaying every word, every laugh, every cold stare from the lounge and gate. The CEO, their father, reached into the inner pocket of his gray suit and pulled out his phone. His sharp eyes scanned through his contacts until he stopped. On one name, Chairman Richards. He pressed the call button. The line clicked. "Sir?" A voice answered quickly, respectful, slightly nervous. "Yes, Richards. Get the entire board on a video call in 10 minutes. "But sir, we're a mid-quarter review." 10 minutes, the CEO said flatly. The line went dead. James looked up, his brow furrowed. "Dad, what are you doing?" His father leaned back, his face calm, but his tone sharp. "Making sure. What happened today never happens again. Not to you. Not to anyone." James leaned forward. "Are you firing people?" The CEO didn't answer directly. Instead, he scrolled through his phone again, dialing another number. A woman's voice answered. "Mr. Carter. What can I pull every security recording from Lounge B and Gate 14? I want copies on my desk by morning, and make sure social media clips are archived." "People were recording everything, yes, sir. Right away." And Mia exchanged a glance. Even Mia, now awake again, whispered, "Dad, is the airline in trouble because of us?" Their father shook his head slowly. "No, the airline is in trouble because it forgot why it exists. And I'm about to remind everyone." 10 minutes later, the cabin lights dimmed slightly as the large screen on the cabin wall came to life. Faces appeared one by one, directors, executives, the chairman himself, all joining the emergency call. Some were still in offices. Some looked like they had been woken from bed. Every one of them looked alert when they saw the CEO's expression. "Gentlemen, ladies," he began, his voice low but commanding. "Today my children ages 12 and 14 were thrown out of our first-class lounge. They were accused of using fake tickets. They were mocked. They were humiliated. By our staff." Murmurs erupted instantly. One director spoke up, "Sir, there must be a misunderstanding. Surely the staff didn't know that's the problem." The CEO cut in sharply. "They didn't ask. They didn't check. Assumed. They decided who belonged and who didn't. In our lounge, on our flight, the faces on the screen went silent. No one dared interrupt again," he continued. "I canceled Flight 408. Those passengers will be compensated. But the people responsible for what happened today will not work another day for us." The lounge attendant, the pilot who laughed, the two security guards there, Done. Effective immediately. The chairman cleared his throat cautiously. Sir, will there be public backlash? Media. The CEO leaned slightly forward, his eyes narrowing. Yes, there will be. Which is why by tomorrow we are launching a new policy. Every staff member will undergo bias and respect training. Every complaint will be reviewed by my office personally. Starting today, no one, no matter their race, clothes, or age, will be questioned or removed without a manager's direct approval. He paused, letting the words settle. Make the announcement within 24 hours, or resign. No one argued. One by one, heads nodded on the screen. Yes, sir, it'll be done. Understood. The CEO ended the call without another word. The screen went black. Mia had been listening quietly from her seat. She looked up at her father with wide eyes. Dad, you really fired them? He nodded once. They broke the one rule that matters most in my company. Treat people with respect. I don't care if someone's a billionaire or a janitor. Everyone gets the same treatment on my airline. James crossed his arms, his voice low but steady. They didn't just break a rule, Dad. They wanted us gone because of how we looked. They didn't even check our tickets. The CEO turned to his son, his expression softening for just a moment. That's why they'll never work for us again. And that's why, starting today, things will change. The jet cruised smoothly, the city lights far below like scattered stars. For a while, silence filled the cabin, broken only by the soft hum of the engines. Mia eventually leaned against her father again, her breathing steady as she drifted towards sleep. James stared at his father. Dad, would you have done all this if it wasn't us? If it was just some other kids? The CEO looked out the window. For a long moment before answering, yes. But because it was you, the whole world is going to pay attention now. And that means the change we make will stick. Ow. James nodded slowly. He wasn't sure if that was comforting or just proof of how powerful his father really was. An hour later, the jet began its descent toward New York. Through the window, the city glittered like a million lights scattered across the dark earth. Mia stirred awake, rubbing her eyes. Are we almost there? She asked softly. Yes, sweetheart, her father said, his voice gentle again, almost home. But even as he said it, his phone buzzed again. He answered. A deep voice on the other end spoke quickly. Sir, media is picking up the story. Videos are everywhere. People are calling the airline racist. They're demanding statements. The CEO's tone didn't waver. Release this. The CEO of Carter Airlines confirms immediate termination of involved staff. Formal apology to the children and their family will be made public, along with new anti-bias training and passenger protection rules. Get it done tonight. Yes, sir. The call ended. The CEO put his phone away and finally exhaled, leaning back in his seat. James looked at him carefully. Dad, are you angry? His father's eyes closed briefly. I'm not angry, son. I'm disappointed. In my staff. In my company. But I'll fix it. That's my job. The jet touched down softly on the runway, the city lights glowing brighter. As they taxied toward a private hangar, for James and Mia, the long day was almost over. But for their father and the entire airline, this was just the beginning, because the world was watching now, and no one, ever again, would dare tell his children or anyone that they didn't belong. By the time the private jet rolled to a stop inside the hangar, the world outside was already buzzing. News alerts were popping up on phones. Social media was exploding. Clips of James and Mia being pushed out of the lounge were everywhere, filmed from dozens of angles by passengers. The videos all told the same story. Two kids, calm and polite, holding real first-class tickets, were treated like criminals. The captions were harsh. Airline staff kick out kids for being black. Two kids humiliated in first-class lounge. Guess who their dad is? It's CEO's children thrown out. Airline faces backlash. That airline down, fire everyone. Would this have happened if they weren't black? Be honest. Some people were angry. Others were shocked. Many were waiting to hear from the CEO himself. James and Mia didn't know the full Storm brewing online. They just knew their day wasn't over. As the jet door opened, cool night air rushed in. Bodyguards stepped out first, scanning the area. Their father, calm as ever, motioned for the kids to follow him down the stairs. A black car was waiting. Again, this time a driver held the door open and quickly whisked them inside. No reporters were at the hangar yet, but their father knew that wouldn't last long. Inside the car, Mia looked out the window as the city lights streaked by. "Dad, is everyone going to know about this now?" Her father looked at her gently. "Yes, the whole world will know. But not because of Uspi, because people need to see how wrong it was." James spoke up, his voice quiet. "They'll all hate the airline now. Won't that hurt your company?" Her father glanced at him. "Sometimes a company needs to feel pain to grow stronger. This isn't about profits anymore. It's about trust. And I won't let anyone trust us less because of what happened today." Minutes later, the car pulled up to the Carter Airlines headquarters in Manhattan. The towering glass building gleamed against the night sky. Reporters were already gathering at the main entrance, cameras flashing, microphones raised. News trucks lined the street. James and Mia stared through the tinted windows. "Are we going through that crowd?" Mia whispered nervously. Their father shook his head. "No. You two are going upstairs through the private entrance. I'll handle the media." He turned to James. "Take care of your sister. Go to my office. Wait for me. I won't be long." James nodded, wrapping an arm around Mia as one of the bodyguards led them through a side door, away from the flashing lights. Outside, the CEO finally stepped out of the car. Cameras went wild. Reporters shouted questions all at once. "Mr. Carter, is it true your children were kicked out of first class today? Are you firing the staff involved? Ms. Carter, airlines racist? Are you canceling more flights after today's incident?" The CEO didn't stop walking, but his voice, when he spoke, was deep and controlled. Carrying over the noise, "My children were humiliated today by staff who forgot our company's most important value, respect. Effective immediately, those employees are no longer with the airline. By tomorrow, we will announce new training and passenger protection rules. No one child, adult, rich, poor, any race, any background, will be treated unfairly on Carter Airlines again. That is my promise." The crowd erupted in more questions, but he didn't answer further. He entered the building with 2 bodyguards, the doors closing behind him. Upstairs, James and Mia were waiting in their father's office. It was large, with a view of the entire city below. Mia sat on the couch, hugging a pillow, while James paced near the window. Mia finally broke the silence. "James, why is everyone outside? Do they care about us?" James turned to her. "They don't just care about us. They care because what happened to us happens to other people too. People who don't have a dad who runs the airline, and no one listens to them. Now they have to listen." Mia's eyes softened. "Will those people, the ones who treated us badly, be okay?" James looked down for a moment. "They'll lose their jobs. Maybe they'll learn something too. Maybe they'll think before they judge someone next time." A few minutes later, the door opened. Their father entered, his tie loosened now, his expression slightly less stern. He sat across from them, resting. His hands on his knees. "It's over for tonight," he said quietly. "The board is handling the announcements. The media will have their statement. You two can finally rest." Mia leaned against him. "Dad, are you mad?" He shook his head. "No, I'm not mad. I'm proud of you both. You stayed calm when people treated you unfairly. That takes strength." James looked at him. "But Dad, will people think we only got justice because we're your kids?" Their father met his gaze steadily. "Maybe. But tomorrow, I'll make sure everyone understands this isn't just about us. It's about everyone. No one deserves what you went through. And no one will face it again, not on my watch." He stood, motioning to the door. "Come on, we're going home." Outside, the reporters were still waiting, but the CEO's car took a different route this time, avoiding the chaos. For James and Mia, the long day was finally coming to an end, but as they rode through the quiet streets, James checked his phone. Hundreds of notifications lit up the screen. Videos, articles, messages. Their faces were everywhere. Mia leaned over, reading some of the headlines. Her eyes widened. James, we're famous. James frowned slightly. Not famous, just seen. I think Dad's about to make sure no one forgets what they saw. 'Cause tomorrow, their father wasn't just going to protect them. He was going to change the entire airline. And maybe the whole industry too. The sun rose over New York City, painting the skyscrapers gold. Inside a quiet penthouse overlooking Central Park, James and Mia slowly woke up. The night before had felt like a blur. The lounge, the humiliation. Their father's arrival, the canceled flight, the cameras. For a moment, Mia thought maybe it had all been a dream, until she picked up her phone. Her screen was flooded with notifications. Messages from friends, videos, articles, even hashtags. She sat up in bed, her voice trembling as she whispered, "James, come look at this." James walked in from his room, yawning, but when he saw her phone, his eyes widened. Their faces were everywhere. Clips of them standing in the lounge, clips of the flight attendant grabbing their tickets, clips of the security guards escorting them out. The captions were bold and angry. Kids humiliated by airline staff, father shuts down flight, racism in first class. Carter Airlines CEO responds to viral incident. The hashtags told the story too. Hashtag justice for James and Mia. Hashtag Carter Airlines scandal. Hashtag flying while black Mia. Hands shook as she scrolled. James, everyone is talking about us. Millions of people are angry. James took the phone and read some of the comments. Most were supportive, but some weren't. Some said they were spoiled kids. Others claimed they were acting. For attention, James set the phone down. Don't read the bad ones. Dad will handle it. He always does. Mia looked at him nervously. But will people hate us now? James shook his head. No, they'll hate what happened to us. That's different. Dad's not going to let this die quietly. You know him. Downstairs in his office, their father was already dressed. In another crisp suit, speaking quietly on the phone as he looked over a stack of papers. When James and Mia entered, he ended the call and turned to them. You've seen the news? He asked. James nodded. It's everywhere. People are furious. Their father's expression stayed calm. It's good. Anger can lead to change. And today, we're going to make that change official. Mia tilted her head. What do you mean? He stood buttoning his jacket. There's a press conference in 2 hours. Every major network will be there. And you, too, will be standing beside me. Mia's eyes widened. What? In front of all those cameras? Her father crouched, so he was at her level. I know it's scary, but people need to see you. They need to hear the truth from us, not rumors from strangers on the internet. This isn't just about fixing the airline. It's about showing everyone that respect isn't optional. James frowned slightly. Won't that make people think we're just using our power to fix things for us? The CEO shook his head. That's why I'm announcing something big today. Something that helps every passenger, not just us. 2 hours later, the Carter Airlines headquarters lobby was a sea of cameras and reporters. Bright lights flashed. News anchors spoke live into microphones. The entire nation, and even other countries, were watching. Behind the podium stood the CEO, his posture strong and confident. On either side of him, James and Mia stood quietly, holding each other's hands for courage. The room hushed as he stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice, but every word carried weight. Yesterday, my children were humiliated by members of my own staff. They were accused of using fake tickets. They were mocked. And they were escorted out of our first-class lounge not because of what they did, but because of what others assumed. Gosh. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Cameras clicked rapidly. The CEO continued. This is not just about my children. This is about every person who has ever been judged, mistreated, or humiliated because of how they look, where they come from, or what someone thinks they can afford. Carter Airlines will not stand for it, and neither will I. He paused, letting the silence settle. Effective today, every employee from pilots to gate agents will undergo mandatory respect and bias training. Every passenger complaint will be reviewed by an independent board, not just by the airline. And any employee who humiliates or discriminates against a passenger will never work for Carter Airlines again. Reporters shouted questions, but he raised a hand to silence them. One more thing, he said firmly, starting next month. Carter Airlines will launch a passenger Bill of Rights. It guarantees that no passenger will be removed, questioned, or accused without immediate proof and a manager's approval. These protections will apply to everyone from economy to first class, no exceptions. The room erupted in questions again. But one reporter shouted loud enough to be heard, "Mr. Carter, are you only doing this because these were your children?" The CEO turned his cold, steady gaze toward the reporter. "No, I'm doing this because this time, they were my children. Next time, it could be yours. Or anyone's. And I will not allow this to happen again." As the press conference ended, James and Mia followed their father out of the building, the cameras still flashing. Mia looked up at him. "Dad, will this really change things?" He glanced down at her, a small but real smile crossing his face. "Yes, Mia. People will remember today, not just because of us, but because it showed everyone that respect is worth fighting for." James walked beside him, his expression still serious. "What about the people who laughed at us? The ones online saying we're spoiled?" Their father's eyes hardened. They can say what they want. "What matters is that now every passenger who boards my planes will know they're safe, respected, and equal. That's the only answer they need." As they stepped into the waiting car, the city buzzed with news alerts, trending hashtags, and live broadcasts. But for James and Mia, the noise felt distant. Because for the first time since yesterday, they felt something new. They weren't just passengers anymore. They were the reason something big had changed. They knew the story wasn't over yet. Her husband shook his head. "That's the point. You didn't know. You didn't even ask." She buried her face in her hands as another notification popped up. A video of her grabbing the kids' tickets had gone viral again. The caption was brutal. "This is the face of discrimination." At a different location, the two security guards sat silently in their car, parked outside the airport. Both had been suspended pending review, but they already knew it was over. One of them muttered, "Man, we just followed orders. The lounge attendant told us to get them out. Now we're the villains." The other shook his head. "No, we didn't even check their tickets. We just assumed she was right. That's on us." They sat in silence, the weight of the situation sinking in. Neither of them wanted to turn on the news. They knew what they'd see, their faces frozen in every viral clip, labeled as the men who escorted two innocent kids out of a lounge. Back at the Carter penthouse, James and Mia sat on the couch, the television glowing softly as a news anchor spoke. Public reaction to yesterday's Carter Airlines scandal remains intense. While many praise CEO Carter for his swift action and reforms, others question if the staff deserve the level of backlash they're receiving online. What's certain is that the incident has sparked a global conversation about respect and equality in air travel. Mia hugged a pillow tightly. "James, do you think we ruined their lives?" James looked at her carefully. "They made choices, Mia. They treated us like we didn't belong, like we were liars. It's not our fault." But he hesitated. "Maybe. I feel a little bad." Mia nodded slowly. "I just wanted them to stop being mean, not lose everything." Father, standing nearby, overheard. He turned, his voice calm but firm. "Kids, listen to me. What happened to them wasn't because of you. It was because they forgot the most important rule. Everyone deserves respect. This isn't about punishment. It's about making sure it never happens again." "But will they ever get another job?" The CEO met his son's eyes. "They'll find work, but they'll remember this. And maybe, next time, they'll treat someone differently because of it." The next day, something unexpected happened. James and Mia started receiving messages. Not from haters, but from strangers. People from all over the country. Some from other countries entirely. One message said, "My son was kicked out of a first-class lounge last year because he looked poor. Thank you for standing up. They can't do this anymore." Another wrote, "I can't afford first class, but I've been treated badly on flights just because of how I look. Seeing your dad fight for you gives me hope things will Change. Mia read the messages aloud, her eyes wide. There. Thanking us? James scrolled through his phone, stunned. Not just us. Dad, too. People think this is the first time an airline actually cares about fixing stuff like this. Their father walked into the room, holding his own phone. He glanced at them and nodded. People are listening. This is our chance to make it right, not just for us, but for everyone. Meanwhile, Carter Airlines headquarters was working around the clock. Marketing teams prepared public statements. Legal teams drafted the new passenger Bill of Rights. Training manuals were rewritten overnight. The CEO stood in the center of it all, moving from meeting to meeting. Every employee could feel the shift. This wasn't just about avoiding a scandal anymore. It was about rebuilding the company's soul. Late that night, one of his top executives pulled him aside. Sir, the reforms are going to cost millions. Shareholders won't be happy. The CEO's gaze was sharp, unwavering. If they care more about money than people, they can sell their shares. This isn't negotiable. Our passengers will know. We value them more, we won't have passengers at all. The executive nodded quickly, realizing there was no point in arguing. Back at home, James and Mia watched another news broadcast. This one showed a surprising sight. Passengers from other flights, people they didn't know, were holding signs at airports. Some read, "Thank you, Carter family," others said, "Respect for all flyers." Mia's eyes widened. They're supporting us? James smiled faintly. Not just us. Everyone who's ever been treated like we were. For the first time since it all began, Mia didn't feel scared. She felt proud. Not because their dad was powerful, but because maybe, just maybe, something good was coming from all of this. The world was watching. The staff who mocked them were gone. The airline was changing. And James and Mia, two ordinary kids with extraordinary circumstances, had become the reason thousands of passengers would be treated with dignity in the future. But deep down, both of them wondered, was this really over? Or was there still one more twist waiting for them? The world's attention hadn't faded. Days after the press conference, Carter Airlines remained the top story. News outlets ran updates on the new policies. Talk shows debated whether the CEO's actions were heroic or just good PR. Social media still buzzed with clips of James and Mia, their father, and the infamous lounge incident. But just as the storm seemed to calm, a new wave hit. This time it wasn't strangers online. It was someone powerful. At a crowded industry summit in Los Angeles, dozens of airline executives gathered to discuss the future of air travel. Cameras were rolling. Reporters lined the back of the hall. Carter Airlines CEO was sitting right in front, flanked by two top executives. Suddenly, another CEO, a man from a rival airline, took the stage. He smirked as he adjusted the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "I suppose we should all thank Carter Airlines for turning a small private incident into a global circus. Now we all get to answer questions about bias and discrimination." The crowd murmured. He continued, "Canceling a flight? Firing loyal employees? Spending millions to appease the internet? All because a pair of children had a bad day? That isn't leadership. That's theater." The cameras panned to the Carter CEO. His face didn't change, but the tension in the room grew thick. Reporters leaned forward, sensing a confrontation. James and Mia weren't there, but they were watching the live broadcast from home. Mia gasped when she heard the rival CEO's words. "James, he's making Dad look bad." James clenched his jaw. He shouldn't have said that. Dad won't let it slide. On screen, the rival CEO chuckled and added, "And now, we're all expected to follow Carter's new passenger Bill of Rights. Policies no one asked for, except a billionaire trying to look like a hero. Tell me, are we running airlines? Or babysitting feelings?" The room buzzed louder. Some executives nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable. The rival CEO turned away from the microphone with a smug grin, clearly thinking he had won the moment. Then, slowly, the Carter CEO stood. He didn't walk to the stage. He didn't need to. His voice carried through the microphone at his table as he pressed the button to speak. "Mr. Davis," he began calmly, addressing the rival CEO by name. "You call what happened to my children a bad day. Do you know what would have happened if they weren't my children? If they were just two ordinary kids? It would have been humiliated, thrown out, and forgotten, like countless passengers before them. That's the real problem." Room went silent. Even the rival CEO stopped smiling. Carter's CEO continued. "My reforms aren't about my children. They're about every person who has ever been judged for their skin, their clothes, or their bank account. If that's babysitting feelings, then perhaps you're in the wrong industry. We move people, not just their luggage." Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. Some executives even applauded quietly. James and Mia leaned closer to the TV, their eyes wide. "Dad is destroying him," James whispered. On screen, the rival CEO shifted uncomfortably, but forced a laugh. "So what now, Carter? You want every airline to follow your rules? You think you can change the whole industry because of two kids?" Carter's CEO didn't flinch. "Yes," he said simply, "because change doesn't start with everyone. It starts with one. And if that one happens to be me, so be it. You don't have to like me. But you will treat every passenger with respect or be left behind while the world moves forward." The rival CEO had no response. The room erupted in applause this time, louder and longer. Reporters rushed to capture the moment, knowing it would go viral before the summit was even over. At home, Mia hugged her brother. "He's credible," she said softly. James nodded, a small smile forming. "Yeah, that's why no one messes with Dad." Their phones buzzed with notifications again. Clips of their father's speech were already spreading online. Carter shuts down rival CEO. Respect isn't optional. Carter's powerful words go viral. From scandal to leadership, Carter Airlines takes over Summit. That evening, their father returned home, looking tired but calm. James and Mia were waiting by the door. Mia rushed to hug him. "Dad, we saw everything. You made that other man look so small." He chuckled softly, resting a hand on her shoulder. "It wasn't about making him small. It was about making something clear. This isn't just an airline issue anymore. It's bigger than that." James tilted his head. "What do you mean?" Their father looked out the window at the glowing city below. "Other industries are watching. Hotels, trains, cruise lines. What happened to you two opened a door. Now everyone knows they can't ignore this anymore." He turned back to them, his expression softer. "You didn't just change Carter Airlines. You may have changed how people are treated everywhere." Mia's eyes widened. "Really? We did that?" Her father nodded. "Yes, and now it's up to us to make sure the change lasts." That night, as James and Mia lay in bed, the city lights flickering through their windows, neither could sleep right away. The whirlwind of the past few days spun in their minds, the humiliation, the cameras, the press, and now the moment their father silenced a rival in front of the entire industry. Mia whispered into the dark James, "Do you think people will ever forget this?" James stared. At the ceiling? No, not for a long time, and maybe it's a good thing. Because sometimes the world needs a story it can't forget. And for James and Mia, that story was still being written. 2 weeks after the summit, Carter Airlines was different. The new passenger Bill of Rights was now official. Training for every staff member had begun. Complaints were already being reviewed by independent investigators for the public. Carter Airlines had gone from the airline with a scandal to the airline that changed everything. People were even calling it the safest airline for any passenger, but for James and Mia, it still felt strange. Everywhere they went, people recognized them. Some smiled and thanked them. Some whispered. And some took photos from a distance. Mia tugged on James's sleeve as they walked through Central Park one morning. "James? I don't like being famous. I just wanted to fly in peace." James nodded. "I know. I didn't ask for it either. But maybe this won't last forever." That evening, their father gathered them in the living room. He stood in front of the fireplace, holding 2 envelopes. "You two have been through a lot," he said softly. "But now, something good is coming. And I need you both for it." He handed the envelopes to them. Inside were 2 shiny, gold-bordered tickets. First-class tickets. But these weren't just for any flight at the top. In bold letters, it read, Honor Flight 001 Inaugural Passenger Bill of Rights. FLAGHT. Mia tilted her head. What's this? Their father smiled. This is the first flight under our new policies. The press will be there. So will passengers from all backgrounds, people who've faced discrimination before. You two will be the guests of honor. James raised an eyebrow. You want us to be in front of cameras again? The CEO's voice softened. Yes, but this time, it's not about what happened to you. It's about showing the world that anyone can fly without fear of being judged or humiliated. I want you there to prove it's real. Mia looked uncertain but nodded. Okay, but can we at least not get kicked out this time? Power? Father chuckled. That I can guarantee. The day of the flight arrived. The airport was busier than ever, but this time the atmosphere felt different. The lounge doors were wide open, staff greeting passengers with genuine smiles. Signs at every counter displayed the Passenger Bill of Rights, clear and bold. Respect is not optional. Fair treatment is guaranteed. Reporters filled the lounge, cameras ready. James and Mia walked in beside their father, this time without fear. Some passengers recognized them and smiled, others whispered, but no one gave them dirty looks. Instead, people nodded as if to say, Thank you. A woman with 2 young kids approached Mia. She was nervous, holding her children's hands. Are you? The girl from the video? Mia nodded shyly. The woman's eyes softened. My son was kicked off a plane last year because a flight attendant thought his clothes were too messy for first class. Thank you for making this change happen. Mia blinked, surprised. You're welcome, I guess. She glanced at James, whispering, James, people really think we helped. James gave a small smile. Maybe. We actually did. When it was time to board, the press followed. The cameras caught every detail, the open smiles of the staff, the respectful treatment of every passenger, the comfort in the air. No one questioned anyone's place, not a single whisper of judgment. Once seated, James looked around the cabin. Every row had a mix of passengers' families, business travelers, even a few who had never flown first class before. And yet everyone seemed relaxed. Equal. Mia leaned toward James. Feels different, doesn't it? James nodded. Yeah, like, this is how it should have always been. Mid-flight, the captain made an announcement. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Honor Flight 001. Today, we celebrate a promise that every person, no matter who they are, deserves dignity in the skies. Please join me in recognizing James and Mia Carter, who turned a painful day into lasting change. The cabin erupted in applause. Mia's cheeks turned red as she ducked into her seat. James just shook his head with a faint grin. This is so embarrassing, he muttered. Their father looked at them both, his expression soft for once. You may not like the attention, but one day you'll understand how important this was. You turned a moment of humiliation into something powerful, something permanent. Hours later, when the plane landed, cameras were waiting again. But this time, there were no angry headlines, no whispers of scandal. Instead, the screens lit up with captions like, Honor Flight changes the skies. Carter kids lead the way to equality in air travel. Scandal to symbol. The flight everyone will remember. James and Mia stood beside their father on the tarmac as passengers thanked them one by one before leaving. For the first time since the nightmare began, Mia smiled without nerves. I think you did something good, James. James glanced at her and nodded slowly. Yeah, maybe now we can finally just be normal again. Their father overheard and chuckled softly. Normal? After all this? I don't know if that's possible anymore. But one thing is certain, no one will ever tell you that you don't belong again. Not on my planes, not anywhere. And for the first time, the siblings believed him. The honor flight had landed smoothly. Passengers cheered, reporters flashed, cameras, and the Carter family stood proudly on the tarmac. For once, everything felt calm. No one was shouting. No one was accusing James or Mia of not belonging. But as the press began packing up, someone stepped out from the crowd. Someone. They all recognized the flight attendant, the same woman who had grabbed James and Mia's tickets in the lounge, telling them they didn't belong. She wasn't wearing her uniform now. Her hair was tied back, and her face looked tired, older almost. But her eyes were steady as she walked toward the Carter family. Reporters noticed instantly, their cameras turning back on. James froze. Mia's grip tightened on her brother's arm. Their father's expression hardened, though he didn't speak. The woman stopped a few feet away. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't argue. Instead, she said quietly, "I needed to see you. All of you." The crowd hushed. Reporters leaned in, sensing a moment that could become another headline. Security guards hovered nearby, unsure whether to step in. But the CEO raised a hand, keeping them back. The flight attendant looked at James and Mia first. Her voice cracked slightly as she spoke. "I lost my job because of what I did to you, my husband. He left. I can't even walk into a store without people whispering." She swallowed hard. "I'm not asking for sympathy. I need to tell you something." James and Mia exchanged a nervous glance but stayed silent. The woman took a deep breath. "I judged you, not because I knew anything about you, but because of what I thought I knew. And I've been living with that shame every single day since." She turned to their father. "You ruined my career. You made sure the world knew my face, and I told myself you were cruel for it. But now I understand. I deserved it, because I forgot that passengers aren't just tickets or seats. They're people, and I treated your kids like they weren't." For the first time since she walked up, Mia spoke softly. "Why are you here now?" The woman looked directly at her. "Because I heard about this flight. About how everything changed. And I wanted to see it for myself, to see the thing my mistake helped create. I wanted to know it wasn't all for nothing." Her eyes began to water, but she didn't look away. "Your father changed the airline, but you too changed me. I don't know if I'll ever work for another airline again, but if I do, I'll never look at anyone the same way." The crowd remained silent. Even the reporters, for once, didn't shout questions. James stepped forward slightly, his voice low but clear. "You hurt us a lot. You made us feel like we didn't belong anywhere. I don't think we'll ever forget that." The woman nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know, and I'll carry that for the rest of my life." James hesitated, glancing at Mia. Then he looked back at the woman.
"But if you're really different now, maybe that's enough. Just don't ever treat anyone like that again. Ever."
The woman nodded again, her shoulders trembling.
"I won't. Not ever." Then slowly she turned and walked away.
"No." One stopped her. No one shouted at her. She just disappeared into the crowd, leaving the tarmac and the Carter family behind. Mia let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "James, did we just forgive her?" James shrugged, staring at the spot where the woman had vanished. "Maybe, or maybe, we just let her go." Their father finally spoke, his deep voice breaking the silence. "You too did something today that most adults can't even do. You faced the person who hurt you, and you let her move on." Mia looked up at him. "Does that mean it's over now?" He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Yes, Mia, it's over. And from now on, you'll never have to fight to belong again. Not here, not anywhere I can reach." As the sun dipped low, casting golden light across the tarmac, James and Mia stood side by side with their father. The flash of cameras no longer bothered them. The whispers no longer stung because they knew the truth now. They weren't just the kids who had been kicked out of first class. They were the reason millions of passengers would never face that same humiliation. They had turned their worst day into a movement. And now, finally, it felt like the chapter was closing. For the first time since that awful day in the lounge, James smiled without hesitation. "Come on, Mia. Let's go home." And together, the Carter family walked away not as victims of a scandal, but as the ones who changed everything. While the Carter family left the tarmac that evening, the story wasn't finished for everyone. Far from it. For the people whose actions started the scandal, the flight attendant and the two security guards' life had changed in ways they never imagined. In a small, dimly lit diner near the airport, two men sat in a booth, nursing cups of black coffee, the security guards. Neither wore their old uniforms anymore. Their jobs were gone, their reputations stained, and their futures uncertain. One of them, a tall, broad-shouldered man named Rick, stared into his cup. 3 years I worked there, never missed a shift, and now, gone. All because we listened to that flight attendant. The other, a leaner man named Victor, shook his head slowly. No, not because of her, because we didn't ask questions. We just followed orders like robots. He rubbed his forehead, frustration written all over his face. I keep thinking, what if they weren't the CEO's kids? What if they were just some random kids? We would have thrown them out and never thought about it again. Rick sighed. Yeah, and that's the problem, isn't it? At the same time, across town, the flight attendant sat alone in her apartment, scrolling through job listings on her laptop. Each time she applied somewhere, she hesitated. Her name was still all over the internet. Every company she reached out to would find the videos, the headlines, the angry comments. She leaned back in her chair, whispering to herself, Maybe I deserve this. Her voice trembled. Maybe this is what happens when you forget. People are people. Her phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number popped up. It read, Second chances don't come easy, but they do come. If you're willing to work for them, meet us at gate 12 tomorrow. No. She stared at the message, unsure whether it was real or some cruel joke. The next morning, the three of them, Rick, Victor, and the flight attendant found themselves at gate 12. It wasn't a regular boarding area anymore. It had been turned into a training hall for Carter Airlines' new Respect and Dignity program. Dozens of new hires stood in line, ready to learn the rules that would now define the airline's future. And at the front of the room, waiting, was none other than the CEO himself. Rick muttered under his breath, Oh, great, he's here to make sure we know we're not wanted. But instead, the CEO looked directly at them and said something none of them expected. You're here because I don't believe in just firing people and forgetting them. You made mistakes, big ones. Believe mistakes can teach lessons if you're willing to change. The room went silent. Even the new hires looked surprised. The CEO continued, None of you will get your old jobs back today. Not yet. But if you complete this program, if you prove you understand what respect actually means, there will be a place for you here again. Not because you deserve it, but because everyone deserves a chance to become better. The flight attendant felt her throat tighten. Why? Why would you give us another chance after everything? The CEO's gaze was steady, unblinking. Because my children asked me to. They don't want revenge. They want change. And so do I, if you're willing to change. This is where it starts. Rick and Victor exchanged glances. Victor nodded slowly. God, I don't know if people will ever forgive us, but I want to make this right. Rick exhaled, his shoulders lowering. Yeah, me too. I don't want to be the guy from that video. Forever. The flight attendant looked down, tears welling in her eyes. I'll do it, whatever it takes. I don't care what people say about me anymore. I just don't want to be that person again. For the next 6 weeks, they trained harder than they ever had before. Not just on procedures or safety, but on understanding people, on listening before judging, on realizing that every person who stepped onto a plane had their own story, their own worth. They worked with diversity experts. They practiced scenarios where they had to de-escalate conflicts without assumptions. And, for the first time, they were forced to confront their own biases openly. It wasn't easy. Some days Rick wanted to quit. Some nights, the flight attendant cried herself to sleep, wondering if it was even worth it. But each time they wanted to give up, they remembered the faces of the 2 kids in the lounge. The shame, the fear, the injustice, and they kept going. At the end of the program, the CEO returned. He looked over the group of trainees, stopping when his eyes met the 3 who had started it all. You've all learned the policies. But this isn't just about rules. It's about a mindset. Tell me, why should I let any of you back on? My planes? Victor stepped forward first. Because we understand now that every passenger deserves respect. No assumptions, no judgments, just respect. And if we ever forget that, we don't deserve these jobs. Rick followed, because I know what it feels like to be judged now. Everyone sees us as villains from that video. But I want to prove that. People can change. I want to earn that chance. Finally, the flight attendant spoke, her voice steady, despite the emotion in her eyes. Because I never want another child or anyone to feel the way I made those kids feel. I can't erase what I did, but I can make sure I never do it again, and I can help others make sure they don't either. The CEO studied them for a long moment before nodding. Then welcome back. Not to your old roles. Not yet. You'll start fresh like everyone else. And you'll earn your way back up. But this time, you'll do it the right way. The three of them nodded silently, relief washing over their faces. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, but it was a chance to rebuild. For the first time since that awful day, they felt like maybe, just maybe, they could. That evening, as the sun set over the city, the Carter family sat at their penthouse table for dinner. Their father looked at James and Mia, a rare softness in his voice. Today, the people who hurt you started over. Not because they deserved it, but because you two showed me something. You didn't want them ruined. You wanted them to understand. James shrugged. We just didn't want to carry it forever. It's done now. Yeah? Mia smiled faintly. Yeah, maybe now everyone gets to move on. Their father raised his glass of water, to moving on, and to making sure this never happens again. The clinking of glasses echoed softly in the quiet dining room, marking the true end of the storm. After weeks of news headlines, public events, and cameras flashing in their faces, James and Mia Carter were finally returning to something familiar. School, the black SUV pulled up to the gates of their private academy early on Monday morning. James, now 14, adjusted his backpack and glanced at his sister. You ready for this? Mia, 12, fiddled with the strap of her bag. Not really. What if everyone stares at us? What if they think we're weird now? James gave a half smile. I already thought we were weird before. Remember when I wore mismatched shoes for a week? Mia let out a nervous laugh, but her shoulders stayed tense. This wasn't like before. Everyone had seen the videos. Everyone knew their names. They weren't just James and Mia anymore. They were those kids, the ones who got thrown out of a lounge, made national news, and somehow changed the whole airline industry. As soon as they stepped through the front gates, the whispers started. Some students froze mid-conversation, their eyes following the siblings. Others pulled out phones, snapping photos when they thought the two weren't looking. Mia gripped James's sleeve. I told you everyone's staring. James kept walking, his voice low. Yeah, just ignore it. We'll be fine. But then a boy from their grade, a tall kid named Logan, stepped directly in front of them. He smirked, holding his phone up. Well, if it isn't the celebrities, what's it like? Having the whole country feel sorry for you? Did your dad buy you a new airline to play with? A small group of kids laughed behind him. Others just watched silently, curious. Mia's face went red. James clenched his fists but stayed still. He remembered what his father always said. Don't give bullies more power by reacting the way they want. Before James could answer, a new voice cut through the tension. Move, Logan. Everyone turned. It was Hannah, one of the most respected students in their grade. She stepped forward, glaring at Logan. You're just mad because they actually did something that matters? What have you done lately? Beat your high score on a video game? The group behind Logan snickered. Logan scowled, but stepped aside, muttering whatever. Guess the heroes can walk in peace. James and Mia exchanged a quick glance, both relieved and surprised. Hannah gave them a small smile. Don't let him get to you. Half the kids here are just jealous, or the other half don't know what to say. It'll calm down eventually. Later that morning, during history class, their teacher did something unexpected. She pulled down the projector screen and displayed a news headline. Honor flight changes the skies forever. The room buzzed immediately. Some students whispered. Others looked directly at James and Mia. The teacher turned to the class. We've been studying social movements this month, and whether you realize it or not, We have 2 students here who were part of one. Her gaze softened as she looked at the siblings. James, Mia, would you mind sharing what this experience taught you? Not about fame, about change? Room went silent. James glanced at Mia. She nodded faintly, so he stood. He didn't feel like a hero, but maybe. People needed to hear something real. James took a deep breath and looked around the classroom. At first, it felt like the worst thing in the world. Getting kicked out of that lounge, being told we didn't belong, it made me feel small, like maybe we really didn't belong anywhere. Paused, glancing at Mia before continuing. But then Dad told us something. He said sometimes unfair things happen so people can see how broken things really are. And when they see it, they can't ignore it anymore. Mia spoke next, her voice quiet but clear. We didn't mean to start anything. We just wanted to. Fly. But when it all blew up, we realized maybe this wasn't just about us. It was about everyone who's ever been treated like they're less than someone else. And if what we went through helped stop that, then maybe it was worth it. The class stayed silent for a moment. Then slowly, students began to clap. Even Logan in the back didn't say a word. By the end of the day, things felt different. People still looked at James and Mia, but not with pity or judgment. Some came up just to shake their hands. Others asked questions about what happened. For the first time, the siblings didn't feel like they were just the kids from the video. They felt like themselves again. As they left the school gates, Hannah caught up with them. You 2 handled that way better than I would have, she said, grinning. Guess you're tougher than you look. James smirked.
Bodies don't tell.
Logan, that. He might start being nice to us, and I don't think I can handle that. They all laughed, the tension finally breaking. For the first time in weeks, life felt normal again at least. As normal as it could after everything that had happened. That evening, at home, their father listened quietly as they told him about their first day back. When they finished, he smiled slightly. Sounds like you handled it better than some adults I know. James shrugged. Guess we had a lot of practice. Mia tilted her head. Do you think people will ever stop talking about it? He paused, thinking carefully before answering. Maybe not completely. But one day people won't remember you just as the kids who got kicked out of first class. They'll remember you as the kids who made things better for everyone. That's not a bad thing to be remembered for. James leaned back in his chair, letting that sink in. For the first time since the scandal began, he didn't feel embarrassed about what happened. He felt proud. And maybe, just maybe, ready to move forward. It had been 2 quiet weeks since James and Mia Carter returned to school. No reporters outside the gates, no cameras flashing in their faces. Life finally felt normal again, until one Friday evening. When everything changed again, James was in his room, playing a video game. When Mia burst through the door holding her phone, her face was pale, her hands shaking. James, look. On the screen was a video that had just gone viral. A shaky recording showed a black woman with her 2 small children crying at an airport. Security guards stood around them, blocking the entrance to a boarding gate. Caption burned across the screen. Another airline, another family, same story. James paused his game, his eyes narrowing. That's not our airline. Mia nodded. It's another one. Sterling Air? They said the mom's ticket was flagged and she couldn't fly, even though she paid for first class? Look at the comments. The screen scrolled through hundreds of furious messages. People were already tagging their dads. Name already demanding Carter Airlines step in and lead the fight again. Downstairs, their father was already on the phone when James and Mia ran to the living room. His voice was calm but sharp. Yes, I've seen the video. This isn't our airline. But yes, I know people will connect us to it anyway. I'll make a statement in an hour. He ended the call and looked at his children. Another company. Another disaster.
Out.
And now, somehow, it's our responsibility again. James frowned. Why us? It's not even your airline this time. Their father's expression hardened. Because we started this. When we forced change on Carter Airlines, the world started looking at every airline differently. And now, people think it's our job to make sure everyone follows the same rules? Mia crossed her arms. So what are you going to do? Make another big speech? Call another CEO? Her father didn't answer right away. He looked at both of them carefully, his voice lowering. I'm not sure this time. This isn't just about the airlines anymore. This is about whether we step back or lead something bigger. That night, the Carter family's home became a command center. Emails poured in from reporters, advocacy groups, even Sterling Air's angry passengers. James sat on the couch watching the news coverage. Every channel replayed the same footage of the crying woman and her kids. Some even used clips of James and Mia from the original scandal as a comparison. Mia whispered, "It's happening all over again, but worse. Because now they're pulling us into it, even when it's not us." James looked at her, his jaw tight. Do we help, or do we just let Dad handle it? The next morning, things escalated. A crowd of protesters gathered outside Sterling Air's headquarters. Some carried signs that said, "Respect all passengers." Others shouted, "Be like Carter Airlines." Reporters shoved microphones into people's faces, asking one question over and over. Will the Carter family get involved? The pressure grew so fast that Carter Airlines stocks started rising simply because people trusted them more than Sterling Air now. By noon, their father called James and Mia into his study. He stood by the window, arms crossed. "I'm getting calls from Sterling's board of directors. They want me to speak to the press and calm the public, even though this isn't my company." Mia frowned. "So, are you going to?" He turned to face them, his eyes serious. "Not alone. The world doesn't want me. They want you two, the ones who started all this. If you're willing to speak out, we could push every major airline to adopt the same rules we did. Not just ours. All of them." James froze. "You mean go public? Again? On TV? Everywhere?" Their father nodded. "Yes, but it's your choice. You don't have to do this." Mia glanced at her brother, uncertainty in her eyes. "James, do we even want to? We just got our normal lives back?" James sat in silence for a long moment. He thought about school, about Logan and the whispers, about finally feeling like life was settling down. Then he thought about the woman in the video, her kids. How scared and powerless they looked, just like he and Mia had that day in the lounge. He looked up at his father. "When we were in that lounge, I wished someone would stand up for us. No one did. Not until you came." He took a deep breath. "So maybe we should stand up for them, even if it's hard." Mia bit her lip, then nodded. "Okay, but we do it together. No speeches where we're just props. If we do this, we speak for ourselves." Their father's stern expression softened slightly. "Then let's get ready. Tomorrow morning, we go live." The next day, a press conference was set up outside Carter Airlines headquarters. Cameras lined the street. Reporters filled the air with shouted questions. For the first time, James and Mia weren't just standing behind their father. They were standing beside him, microphones in hand. James spoke first, his voice steady despite the crowd. "What happened to that? Family at Sterling Air is wrong. Doesn't matter if it's first class or coach. No one deserves to be treated like they don't belong." Mia followed, her voice stronger than ever. "We're just kids. But we know what it feels like to be humiliated. We know what it feels like when no one helps. That's why we're asking every airline, not just our dads, to make the same changes Carter Airlines did. Passengers deserve respect everywhere, not just here." The crowd erupted in cheers. Reporters shouted questions, their voices blending into a roar. But for once, James and Mia didn't feel scared. They felt powerful, because this time, they weren't just surviving a scandal. They were leading a movement. The day after James and Mia's press conference, the world waited for Sterling Air to respond. Social media was on fire. News channels replayed the Carter siblings' speech over and over. Hashtags like #RespectInTheSkies and #BeLikeCarter Airlines trended worldwide. But when Sterling Air's CEO, stern man named Charles Whitman, finally stepped in front of cameras, his words shocked everyone. "We at Sterling Air," he said, standing in a sharp suit before a wall of microphones, "believe our staff acted appropriately in the recent incident. We will review policies, but we will not be dictated to by competitors. By two children who simply got lucky because of who their father is." The press erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Some asked about the crying family. Others questioned why he called James and Mia lucky. Whitman raised a hand to silence them. We run a professional airline, not a charity. If passengers don't meet certain standards, we reserve the right to refuse service. That will not change. With that, he turned and walked away. No apology. No plan to change. Nothing. Within hours, backlash exploded. Passengers canceled tickets. Celebrities tweeted their outrage. Videos of angry travelers tearing up Sterling Air boarding passes went viral. But the worst was the personal attacks. People began comparing the crying mother to Mia and James, saying, "If the Carters could make change, why can't this family?" The pressure shifted back to the Carter siblings' people, demanding that they do something to force Sterling Air. To change, James sat on the living room couch, scrolling through the flood of notifications on his phone. Why does this always come back to us? We don't even fly with Sterling. Mia sat beside him, hugging her knees. Because people think we're the only ones who can make them listen. They don't care if it's our dad's company or not. Their father walked into the room, holding a folder. He looked calm, but his tone was serious. Sterling Air isn't going to change on their own. And now, their CEO is trying to turn this into a fight. He's implying that you two only care because of privilege. James frowned. So what do we do? Just ignore him. Let the protests keep growing? The CEO shook his head. No, we can't ignore it. Sterling is a global airline. If they refuse to change, other airlines will think they can ignore this movement too, and then everything we built will fall apart. He placed the folder on the table. Inside were documents proposals for a global passenger rights agreement, something no airline had ever agreed to before. I can bring this to the International Airline Board next week, he said. But I need leverage. I need the public. And that means I need you too. Mia looked up. Again, her father nodded. Again, but this time we're not just talking about one company. We're talking about every major airline in the world. This is bigger than Carter Airlines, bigger than Sterling. It's about making this standard everywhere. The next day, James and Mia found themselves on a stage in New York City. Thousands of people filled the streets below. Some carried signs with their names. Others waved banners demanding equal treatment for all passengers. James stepped to the microphone, his voice carrying over the crowd. When we first got kicked out of that lounge, we didn't think anyone would care, but people did, and things changed. Now, another family is living what we lived, and Sterling Air thinks it's okay to ignore them. We're here to say it's not okay, not for them, not for anyone. Mia followed, her voice steady, despite her nerves. This isn't about first class or economy. This isn't about money. It's about basic respect. Every person deserves it when they travel. And if Sterling, Aurora, any airline can't see that, then maybe they shouldn't have passengers at all. The crowd erupted into cheers, chants filling the streets. Change the skies. Change the skies. But not everyone was cheering. In a boardroom across the city, Charles Whitman watched the rally on a massive screen. His face was expressionless, but his advisors shifted uncomfortably. Sir, one of them said, Carter Airlines is gaining market share every day this drags on. People are booking with them just because they feel safer there. Whitman's jaw tightened. I don't care. I won't let two teenagers or their father dictate how I run my airline. He turned off the screen. If they want to fight, they'll get one. Sterling Air will not be bullied into changing. And if the Carters think they can embarrass us, they'll regret it. That evening, James and Mia received a warning from their father's assistant. Sterling Air was preparing to launch a campaign against them, painting the Carters as spoiled rich kids. Using tragedy for fame, James stared at the message on his phone. So now, they're coming after us. Mia looked at her brother, her voice trembling. What do we do now? They make everyone hate us. All of this could fall apart. James didn't answer right away. He stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. Finally, he said, Then we don't back down. Not this time. If they want to fight, we'll give them one. 2 days after the rally, the attack began. Sterling Air released a sleek, expensive-looking advertisement. It opened with slow music and soft lighting, showing a smiling pilot and a friendly cabin crew. But then, a narrator's voice turned cold. Recently, two wealthy children and their billionaire father have tried to dictate how airlines run. They call it fairness. We call it privilege. The video showed blurred clips of James and Mia, followed by footage of Carter Airlines jets. The narrator continued, Sterling Air stands for real travelers, not spoiled kids, using the skies as their playground. The ad went viral instantly. Hashtags like hashtag spoiled Carters and hashtag real travelers began trending. Talk shows debated whether James and Mia were truly heroes or just rich kids playing saviors. At home, the siblings sat on the couch watching the ad repeat on the news. James clenched his fists. You're making us look like villains, like we only care because we're rich. Mia hugged her knees, her voice quiet. People already stared at us before. Now, they'll hate us. What if Dad loses everything because of us? Their father, who had been pacing the room, stopped and turned toward them. Listen to me. This is exactly what Sterling wants. They can't win on facts, so they're turning it into a popularity game. But we won't let them. We're not fighting back with another ad. We're fighting back with the truth. James looked up. What truth? The CEO's eyes darkened. The truth about Sterling Air, something I've kept quiet until now because I wanted this fight to stay clean. But if they want to play dirty, then so be it. That night, the Carter family sat around the dining table as their father opened a thick envelope marked confidential. Inside were documents, internal reports, emails, even photos. They revealed something shocking. Sterling Air had quietly settled multiple discrimination lawsuits over the past 5 years. Cases where passengers were humiliated, denied service, or removed from flights without cause. All were silenced with settlements and non-disclosure agreements. Mia's eyes widened. They've been doing this for years, and no one knows. Her father nodded grimly. They paid to keep it buried, and now they're calling us privileged. They've built their entire reputation on hiding the people they hurt. James leaned forward, his voice firm. Then we tell everyone, live. No editing. Words out of context. The next morning, James and Mia were booked for a live interview on Global News Network, the biggest international channel. It wasn't just a friendly chat. The host, known for asking brutal questions, was ready to test them. As the cameras went live, the host leaned forward with a sharp smile. James, Mia, millions of people see you as heroes. But millions of others think you're rich kids using your dad's company to get attention. Are you really fighting for passengers or just yourselves? The question cut deep, but James didn't flinch. We didn't choose to be in the spotlight. We didn't ask for cameras. We just wanted to fly home like anyone else. Sterling a roar. Any airline treats families like they don't matter, we're not going to sit quietly. This isn't about us. It's about everyone who flies, Mia added, her voice calm but sharp. And if people think we're only doing this because we're rich, they should know Sterling Air has been silencing real passengers for years. People who don't have a dad who can fight for them. We brought the proof. She held up a folder, placing it on the table in front of the cameras. The host's eyes widened slightly. What's in that folder? James opened it, pulling out one document. It's a settlement Sterling paid to a single mother last year. She was removed from a flight because a crew member didn't believe she belonged in first class, even though she had a valid ticket. There are more. Dozens more. They've been paying people to stay silent while they keep doing the same thing. Cameras zoomed in as the siblings spread the documents across the desk. Gasps could be heard from the audience behind the cameras. Mia looked directly into the lens. So, if Sterling Air wants to call us spoiled, fine. We're not the ones hiding the people they've hurt. We're the ones giving them a voice. Bye. The time the interview ended, the internet had exploded again, but this time, the tide turned. The hashtag shifted from hashtag spoiled Carters to hashtag expose Sterling and hashtag passenger voices. People demanded Sterling Air release all settlement records. Lawyers began speaking publicly, saying they had former clients ready to share their stories. Charles Whitman watched the interview from his office, his jaw tight. An advisor whispered, "Sir, The board is panicking. Stock is crashing, they're saying. If this continues, you might be removed. Whitman didn't answer. He stared at the screen, watching James and Mia, his hand curling into a fist. This isn't over. If they want war, they'll get war. That night, as James and Mia sat in their rooms, Mia whispered, "Do you think we've made things worse or better?" James looked at his sister. "I don't know yet, but we can't stop now. If we do, Sterling wins. And all those people they hurt, they stay invisible." He glanced out the window, city lights flickering in the distance. "Tomorrow, we finish this." The morning after the explosive interview, chaos hit Sterling Air. The company's stock had dropped by 40%. Hundreds of passengers had come forward with stories of discrimination. News channels around the world aired the Carter siblings' interview. On repeat, and in the middle of it all, Sterling Air's CEO, Charles Whitman, decided to make one final move at a surprise press conference. Whitman stood behind a podium, flanked by lawyers and security guards. His voice was cold, controlled, and deliberate. "Today," he said, "we are announcing a lawsuit against Carter Airlines, its CEO, and his 2 children, James and Mia Carter, for defamation and interference with business operations." Gasps erupted from the room. Reporters shouted questions. Whitman continued, ignoring the noise. "These so-called activists are not heroes. They are opportunists. They fabricated lies, released confidential documents, and cost our company billions. This ends now. Either they retract everything or we will destroy them in court." The cameras clicked furiously. By the end of the hour, the headline was everywhere. Sterling Air sues Carter family, $500 million claim. At the Carter penthouse, silence hung heavy as they watched the announcement. Mia's hand shook. $500 million. We don't even have that much. James gritted his teeth. "They're not suing for money. They're trying to scare us into silence." Their father leaned back in his chair, calm but focused. "They want to break us. But they made a mistake." James turned to him. "What mistake?" The CEO opened a black binder on the table. "This isn't just about public opinion anymore. I've been holding back. But Sterling Air's corruption goes far beyond discrimination. And tomorrow, at the Global Airline Summit, we'll show the world exactly who they are." The next day, the Global Airline Summit was held in Geneva, Switzerland. Representatives from every major airline, international regulators, and hundreds of reporters filled the massive hall. For the first time, James and Mia were invited to speak not just as victims, but as representatives for passengers around the world. Sterling Air's team sat across the room. Glaring at them like predators waiting for a kill, Charles Whitman smirked as he whispered to his lawyer, "They'll fold before this is over. Watch." But when it was their turn, James and Mia didn't fold. James stepped to the microphone first, his voice echoing through the hall. 2 months ago, we were just 2 kids trying to fly home. We didn't ask for this. But since then, we've seen how deep this problem goes. We've met families who were silenced. We've seen records Sterling Air tried to bury. Today, we're not just asking for change, we're demanding it. Mia held up a flash drive for the cameras to see. This contains internal documents from Sterling Air, not just discrimination cases, evidence of illegal overbooking practices, safety violations, and fraud. Things they've paid millions to cover up while passengers suffered. The crowd erupted into murmurs. Journalists scrambled to get a closer look. James finished, his voice sharp. "Sterling Air doesn't just disrespect passengers. They endanger them. We're giving this evidence to international regulators today, because this fight isn't just about us. It's about everyone who's ever stepped on a plane." Whitman shot to his feet, slamming his hand on the table. "This is outrageous! These children are criminals stealing company property and spreading lies." But before he could continue, one of his own board members stood up. "Enough, Charles. We've seen the files. We know what you've done. You've been hiding this from us, to..." Gasps filled the room as 2 security officers approached Whitman. The board member's voice rang out, calm but final, effective immediately. "Charles Whitman is removed as CEO of Sterling Air. This company will cooperate with regulators and adopt the Global Passenger Rights Agreement. Whitman's face went pale as the guards escorted him out of the hall. The cameras caught every second. As the room settled, the head of the International Airline Council stood at the podium. Thanks to the evidence presented today, all major airlines have agreed to sign the Global Passenger Rights Agreement. This will ensure fair treatment, transparency, and dignity for passengers everywhere. And for leading this change, we recognize James and Mia Carter as honorary ambassadors for passenger rights. The crowd erupted into applause. James and Mia exchanged stunned glances, barely able to process what just happened. Later that evening, as they sat on a balcony overlooking the city, Mia whispered, "Did we just change the whole airline industry?" James laughed softly. "I think we did. I still don't even have my math homework done." They both laughed for the first time in weeks. The storm was over. The airlines were changing. And for once, they weren't just the kids from a viral video. They were something more. Their father stepped out onto the balcony, a rare smile on his face. "You both did more than most adults could. I'm proud of you now. How about we finally take a vacation? On a plane where no one dares to mess with us?" James smirked. "First class." Their father chuckled. "First class, economy, middle of the cargo hold, I don't care, as long as we're together." Mia smiled, leaning on her brother's shoulder as the lights of the city twinkled below. For the first time, the skies truly felt open to everyone.